I want you to picture, just for a second, the absolute pinnacle of modern esports.
Right, like the really big stages.
Yeah, exactly. You are standing in the middle of a massive, roaring stadium. Let's say the National Stadium in Beijing.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe the Key Arena in Seattle. And the lights are just blinding. They're sweeping across tens of thousands of screaming fans.
That's deafening, right?
Totally deafening. And the production value, I mean, it literally rivals the Super Bowl. You've got, like, augmented reality dragons flying around the stage.
And usually a live orchestral performance happening right there, too.
Right. And the stakes for all this, we are talking about prize pools soaring into the billions of, like, tens of millions of US dollars.
That's unbelievable amounts of money.
It is. It's this massive, slick, highly corporatized global spectacle. But now I want to completely pull the rug out from under all of that.
Okay, let's do it.
Because the genre that is driving this entire global phenomenon, you know, what we currently call the MOBA, it didn't begin in some sleek corporate boardroom in Silicon Valley, or Tokyo for that matter.
Yeah, not at all.
Right? It didn't start with a massive approved budget or a seasoned team of like 500 professional developers.
A plus.
It started with the blood, sweat, tears, and just pure, unfiltered imagination of everyday players.
Yeah.
Players who were literally just creating custom mods, you know, modifications of existing games right in their bedrooms.
It genuinely stands as one of the most incredible, almost impossible origin stories in the history of entertainment.
It really is.
Because you look at this multi-billion-dollar, highly regulated global industry today, and you have to realize its DNA is entirely 100% homegrown.
Yeah, built by the fans.
Exactly. It's a genre of competition that was aggressively willed into existence by the very people who are playing it.
And that really is our mission for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you are entirely new to esports culture, if you are looking from the outside in, the terminology alone can feel like, well, an impenetrable wall.
Oh, it's so intimidating for a newcomer.
It really is. You tune into a broadcast and immediately hear words like lanes and creeps and ganks, buffs, nerfs, and they're being shouted by commentators at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, it can be completely overwhelming.
But today, we are going to strip all of that confusion away for you. We're going to decode the jargon, simplify this, you know, seemingly complex history. And we want to chart the miraculous evolution of this genre, going from those early, fragmented, fan-made passion projects all the way to the massive international stadiums we see today.
It's quite the journey.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the giant stadiums of the 2020s, we can't just look at modern gaming consoles.
Right. We really have to dial the clock way back.
Exactly. We have to go back to the very first spark.
And that spark requires us to rewind to the year 1998.
1998.
Wow. Yeah. And the thematic groundwork we really have to lay down here is that this entire journey is a story about grassroots innovation.
Okay, what do you mean by that specifically?
I mean, this is about how a community literally built the stadium they now play in, brick by digital brick.
I love that phrasing.
But in 1998, that stadium was, well, it was just a tiny, primitive digital sandbox.
Right. The technology was obviously completely different.
Exactly. The PC gaming landscape back then was heavily dominated by grand strategy games. And one game ruled them all. StarCraft.
Oh, man. StarCraft. I feel like that's one of those titles where even if you have never touched a video game in your life, you've probably heard the name.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's whispered in pop culture all the time. It's totally foundational.
Foundational is the perfect word for it. StarCraft is the quintessential real-time strategy game, or RTS, as it's often called.
Right, RTS.
And to understand the MOBA, you have to understand the RTS paradigm that it essentially rebelled against.
Okay, so paint that picture for me. What is the RTS paradigm?
So, in a game like StarCraft, the scope is vast. You are essentially playing as a supreme commander, just hovering high above the battlefield.
Like an eye in the sky.
Exactly. You are macro-managing a massive, sprawling army. We are talking about ordering dozens, sometimes hundreds of individual units at once.
Wow.
You're telling them to mine resources, build barracks, research laser technologies, and attack the enemy on like 3 different fronts simultaneously.
That sounds exhausting, honestly.
It is. The mental load is completely staggering. Your brain has to split its attention in a dozen different directions at once.
I always think of it as the ultimate plate spinning exercise.
Yes.
But while you're spinning the plates, someone is also just aggressively throwing rocks at your head.
That is exactly what it feels like. And that stress, it's by design.
Right.
But then a single player comes along, just a regular player who goes by the screen name Aeon 64.
Aeon 64, okay.
Now, StarCraft, like some PC games of that era, shipped with a piece of software called a map editor.
Ah, so they gave the players some tools.
Yes. This was a tool that allowed players to create their own custom scenarios using the game's existing art and code.
Just to mess around with, basically.
Yeah. But Aeon 64 decides to take these tools and build a very specific custom map called Aeon of Strife.
Aeon of Strife.
And this, right here, is where the entire paradigm of competitive gaming completely shifts.
Because Aeon 64 looked at this massive, stressful game about controlling an entire galactic civilization and essentially said, what if we just, zoom all the way in?
Exactly that. Instead of macro-managing a giant, unwieldy army, Aeon of Strife forced 4 players to control just one single unit.
Just one.
Just one hero character each. And those 4 individual players had to actually talk to each other and cooperate.
Right, using only their individual heroes.
Yes, to push forward across the map and destroy the enemy team's main base.
That is such a radical shift in perspective. It really is.
It completely changed how you interacted with the game.
It makes me think about it like this, actually. Imagine you've been playing a god game where you build a whole city.
Okay, I'm with you.
You're zoning the residential areas, you're managing the water pipes, you're controlling the traffic flow from up in the clouds.
Right, you're the omnipotent mayor.
Exactly. You are completely isolated, making all the macro decisions. If traffic backs up, well, that's entirely on you.
Yeah, it's your fault.
And then, suddenly, a mod comes along and drops you right onto the street as a single citizen.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You no longer control the city's infrastructure at all. You just control your own 2 feet.
You're just one guy on the sidewalk.
Yeah. And to get anything done, say, to stop a bulldozer from knocking down your block, you suddenly have to team up with 3 of your neighbors.
Which is so much harder than just clicking a button from the sky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely shifts the human brain from this state of total isolation and control to a state of hyper-collaboration and extreme vulnerability.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You lose your omnipotence.
Right.
And by stripping away that omnipotence, the game forces a completely new social dynamic right onto the battlefield.
Because you can't just rely on yourself anymore.
Exactly. In standard StarCraft, if you lose a match, it is entirely unequivocally your fault. Your strategy was flawed.
Yeah, you didn't spin the plates fast enough.
But in Aeon of Strife, if you lose, it might be because your neighbor didn't cover your blind spot.
Right.
Or because the 2 of you didn't coordinate your attacks properly. You were relying entirely on the person sitting next to you.
But I want to pause here for a second because we probably shouldn't romanticize this too much.
Fair enough.
Looking back at it through a modern lens, this original Aeon of Strife map was, well, primitive might be an understatement, right?
Oh, it was incredibly bare bones. Like, painfully so.
Yeah, I figured.
It was the rawest possible prototype of a new gameplay loop. You have to remember, the tools were very limited.
Right, it's 1998.
Yeah. There was no system for leveling up your character. There was no gold dropping from enemies when you defeated them.
So no economy at all.
None. There were no hidden shops in the forest where you could buy powerful magic items to customize your hero's build.
You just kind of walked forward and hit things.
That was it. You pick your one static unit and you march forward, attacking until you won or you died.
Wow. Very basic.
It served as a proof of concept, really. It showed that cooperating as single units was inherently fun.
Right, the social aspect was there.
But it lacked the necessary depth to keep a player engaged for hundreds of hours. It was the concrete foundation, you know. But a foundation alone isn't a house you want to live in.
Which makes perfect sense. A good foundational loop is crucial.
Yeah.
You know, you run forward, you hit the enemy, you try to destroy their base.
Yeah, it works on paper.
It's a solid premise.
Right.
But for a game to truly hook players long term, to really sink its teeth into your brain chemistry, it needs a sense of progression.
Absolutely.
You need to feel like the time you're investing is actually leading somewhere. The game has to evolve.
It has to give you a reason to come back tomorrow.
Right. And that inevitable evolution is what brings us out of 1998 and into a massive watershed moment, which happens in the year 2002.
And that watershed moment is triggered by the release of another monumental strategy game.
From the same company, right?
Yes, from Blizzard Entertainment. The game was Warcraft 3.
Warcraft 3, okay.
Now, on the surface, Warcraft 3 was cut from a very similar cloth as StarCraft. It was a real-time strategy game about building armies and bases.
Just in a fantasy setting this time, knights and orcs instead of aliens.
Exactly. High fantasy instead of sci-fi. But the developers did something crucial this time around.
What was that?
They provided a vastly freer canvas for the community. The map-making tools included with Warcraft 3 were unimaginably more powerful than what came before.
So they upgraded the sandbox.
Massive upgrade. They didn't just let you place trees and rocks on a grid anymore. They allowed players to write custom scripts and alter the fundamental rules of the game's engine itself.
That is wild. It sounds like they basically handed their players the keys to a fully functioning game development studio.
They essentially did.
Just hiding it unassumingly inside the game's main menu for anyone to play with.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And the modding community recognized the potential of this sandbox immediately.
I bet they did.
So a mod creator who goes by the name Ewell steps onto the scene.
EUL.
Yes, Ewell. And Ewell looks at the fundamental concept that Aeon 64 pioneered back in StarCraft. You know, the multiple players, the single heroes, the goal of destroying the enemy base.
Right, that core loop.
And he decides to rebuild that concept using the vastly superior Warcraft 3rd engine.
Okay, this is getting good.
He calls this new custom map Defense of the Ancients.
Oh, wow.
Or, as gamers globally would instantly and permanently come to know it, DotA.
DotA. I mean, just saying that acronym out loud, you can almost feel the cultural impact it had on an entire generation of gamers.
It's completely iconic.
It is. But let's dig into the mechanics here, because we need to simplify this. What specifically made Ewell's map so vastly superior to Aeon 64's?
Right.
Why did DotA explode while Aeon of Strife remained just a, neat proof of concept?
It exploded because Ewell infused the map with deep RPG elements.
RPG meaning role-playing game mechanics.
Correct. In the original Aeon of Strife, as we discussed, your hero was static. They didn't change from minute 1 to minute 30.
Right, you have the same guy the whole time.
But in DotA, your hero grew. And this is where we can really start decoding that jargon you mentioned earlier.
Excellent. Lay it on me.
What's fascinating here is the psychological hook of this specific gameplay loop. When you load into a match of DotA, your chosen hero is incredibly weak.
Like how weak?
Very fragile. Your attacks do barely any damage. You are essentially a peasant holding a stick on a battlefield.
Okay, so you start at the absolute bottom.
Exactly. But as you play, as you defeat enemies, you earn experience points. Yeah. And you use those points to level up your hero during that specific match.
Right, and as you level up, you get to upgrade specific skills. You aren't just universally getting slightly stronger, you are making active choices about how you grow.
Yes. You steer the progression.
So, if I'm playing a fire mage, I have to decide, do I want to make my fireball hit harder right now, or do I want to learn a new spell that lets me teleport away from danger?
Exactly. You are customizing your growth in real time based on what the enemy is doing to you.
That adds so much strategy.
It does. But Ewell went further than just leveling up. He introduced a localized economy.
The gold.
Yes. By defeating enemies, you earn gold. You can then take that gold back to your team's base and make strategic economic choices by purchasing items.
Right, so you're shopping.
You're shopping.
Yeah.
You might save up to buy a magical sword that dramatically increases your damage.
Or maybe thick armor that makes you survive longer.
Exactly. Or even just boots that let you run faster so you can escape dangerous situations.
So you're going from this incredibly weak, vulnerable state, making all these continuous micro decisions about which skills to upgrade and which items to buy. And by the end of, say, a 45-minute match, you are practically a demigod.
Oh, absolutely.
You are unleashing these massive, screen-shaking, magical abilities and completely wiping out the enemy team. It's this incredible tower fantasy.
It is the ultimate power fantasy. You experience an entire sprawling hero's journey, from a vulnerable peasant to an unstoppable demigod, compressed into the span of less than an hour.
That is wild to think about.
And then, and this is arguably the absolute genius of the entire MOBA genre, the match ends. The screen fades to black. and everything resets.
Everything.
Everything. For the very next match, you are stripped of all your items, all your levels, and you are right back at level 1.
Just a peasant with a stick again.
Weak and vulnerable all over again.
But wait, let me push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
If everyone resets to level 1 every single 45 minutes, doesn't that get incredibly repetitive?
You would think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, how did that repetitive reset not completely kill the game's momentum for players who, usually want to feel a sense of permanent progress in a video game?
It's a great question, and it's really the paradox of the genre. It doesn't get repetitive because the permutations are infinite.
Permutations of what?
Of the choices.
Yeah.
Yes, the character resets, but the player's mind evolves.
Okay.
Because the game resets, your brain immediately starts analyzing the previous match. You think, wait, what if I bought a different item early on?
What if I leveled up my teleport spell before my fireball?
Exactly. What if I chose an entirely different hero next time? It creates this endless addictive cycle of, let's play just one more game to test this new theory.
Oh, I see. It's a fresh slate every single time, but your human knowledge is the permanent progression.
Beautifully put, yes.
Yeah.
Your skill is what levels up permanently.
That makes total sense. Okay, so we've explained the RPG loop, but before we move on, we promised the listeners we'd decode the jargon.
Right, the specific terminology.
Yeah. Where do words like lanes and creeps fit into Yule's design?
Yes. So the map Yule designed for Dota wasn't just, a wide open field. It was divided into 3 distinct pathways that connected your base to the enemy's base. These pathways are called lanes.
Like lanes on a highway.
Exactly. Usually there's a top lane, a middle lane, and a bottom lane. And players have to decide how to divide their team among these lanes to defend their base and push forward.
Okay, lanes are just the roads. I've got it. And what about creeps? It sounds like, an insult you'd yell at the enemy team.
A lot of people think that at first, but creeps is actually the term for the automated armies.
Automated armies?
Yeah. Remember, we said the game shifted from controlling an army to controlling one hero.
Right.
But the battlefield still needs an army to feel like a war, right? It can't just be 4 guys standing around.
That makes sense.
So the game itself automatically spawns waves of weak computer-controlled soldiers for both teams.
Okay, and they just do their own thing?
Yeah. These soldiers blindly march down the lanes, clashing with each other right in the middle. These are the creeps. And as a player, your main source of gold and experience early in the game is dealing the final killing blow to these enemy creeps.
Okay, so the creeps are essentially your automated cannon fodder, but they're also the primary economic resource for the players. You farm them for gold.
Exactly, you farm creeps.
And I'm assuming then that a gank is when a player leaves their lane to go ambush someone in another lane.
Precisely. Gank is short for gang kill. It's just an ambush.
Gang kill, that's so literal.
Yeah, you sneak through the fog of war between the lanes to surprise an enemy who is maybe too focused on fighting creeps to notice you coming.
Okay, jargon decoded. I feel like I understand this now. We have our map, we have our lanes, creeps, ganks, and this highly addictive, resetting RPG loop.
You've got the basics down.
It sounds like Yule created the perfect game, but there had to be a catch, right? Because we are still in the era of open source modding here.
There was a massive catch. The ceiling of Yule's version was dictated by the very nature of open source, community-driven projects.
Because anyone could mess with it.
Exactly. Because the tools to make these maps were completely free and accessible to anyone who owned Warcraft III, the community creators eventually went wild.
Like modifying Yule's modification.
Yes. Yule, after creating this brilliant foundation, eventually decided to step away from the project.
Oh, he left.
He did. And because he left his code open and unlocked, other amateur modders immediately swooped in to fill the vacuum.
It's like a communal garden where the head gardener just leaves, and suddenly everyone in the neighborhood starts planting their own weird experimental seeds wherever they want.
That's a very accurate analogy. Within a year, there wasn't just one definitive version of Dota.
How many were there?
There were dozens, if not hundreds, of slightly tweaked variations floating around the internet.
Wow, hundreds.
Yeah. Some modders made versions with ridiculously overpowered heroes that could kill you in one hit.
That doesn't sound very fun.
It wasn't really. Others made versions with bizarre maze-like maps. Some added ridiculous items. It created a massive, crippling problem of fragmentation.
Because if you logged onto the internet to play Dota with your friends, you had no idea which specific, bizarre version of the rules you were actually going to be playing.
Exactly. The community was entirely fractured. And a game can't evolve into anything serious if it's too chaotic.
Right, you need standardization.
Someone needed to step in and forcefully curate that chaos.
Which introduces the next major figure in our historical timeline, a mod developer who went by the handle Ginsu.
Ginsu?
And what Ginsu did to solve this fragmentation problem is actually quite counterintuitive.
Very much so.
He didn't lock himself in a room and try to invent a brand new, completely original version from scratch to compete with all the others, did he?
No, his approach was much smarter than that.
Yeah?
His brilliant move was acting purely as an archivist and a curator.
A curator?
Yeah. He looked at the vast, messy, chaotic landscape of all these different fragmented Dota mods, and he essentially cherry-picked the best elements from all of them.
Oh, that is smart.
He took the most popular hero from version A, the most exciting item from version B, the most well-designed spell from version C.
And just threw them all together.
Mashed them all together into one massive, comprehensive, definitive map. He released it and called it Dota All-Stars.
All-Stars. I love this. So the blueprint for what would eventually become the biggest, most lucrative, competitive gaming genre in the world wasn't some grand, cohesive master plan meticulously written on a corporate whiteboard.
Not at all.
It was essentially a greatest hits album. Like it was a mixtape mixed by a fan using other fans' work for other fans to enjoy.
It was absolutely a mixtape. It was a chaotic amalgamation of the community's favorite toys, all thrown into one unified toy box.
That is just incredible.
But the cultural impact of this specific curation, Dota All-Stars, it really cannot be overstated.
Right.
Because Ginsu finally gathered the entire fractured player base into one unified location, playing by one set of rules. And it triggered an explosive global phenomenon.
And we really need to linger on where this phenomenon took hold.
Yeah, the physical location matters a lot here.
Because it wasn't just a bunch of isolated people playing alone in their dark bedrooms anymore. The source material specifically highlights the massive, undeniable domination of Dota All-Stars in internet cafes.
Yes, particularly across Southeast Asia.
Right, and very prominently in Thailand.
The internet cafe culture of the early to mid-2000s is the absolute crucible where the genre was truly forged.
Crucible is a strong word. Paint that picture for us.
Well, it's vital to understand the technological context of that era. If you wanted to play a demanding, low-latency multiplayer game back then, having a high-speed, reliable home internet connection wasn't a guarantee for the average teenager.
Oh, definitely not. It was expensive and slow.
Exactly. So players naturally flocked to these local cyber cafes. Picture walking into a room filled with rows and rows of glowing, heavy CRT monitors.
Oh, man, the big, bulky ones.
Yeah, taking up the whole desk. The air is thick, it's hot from all the machines running, and the room is absolutely deafening.
Just constant noise.
It's filled with the frantic, rhythmic clicking of 50 computer mice. And people literally shouting strategies and warnings across the room to their friends, sitting like 3 rows down.
He's in the bushes. He's ganking.
Exactly.
It made the digital experience deeply physical. It made it incredibly social. You weren't just playing against some anonymous screen name hundreds of miles away.
No, you were playing against the guy who just brought a soda from the front desk.
Right. And when you executed a perfect gank and secured an amazing victory, the whole cafe knew about it instantly.
People would cheer.
What?
Or yell in frustration.
It turned this digital map into a genuine local cultural event. It was really the birth of a very specific communal type of competitive tension.
It was the ultimate proving ground. The cafe environment naturally fostered rivalries, localized metas, and a deeply passionate community.
But there's always a but.
There is. Because as the popularity of Dota All-Stars swelled within these cafes and on the global internet, a new massive challenge emerged. Which one? Well, a greatest hits mixtape is incredibly fun. It's loud, it's chaotic, it's full of crazy combinations and, overpowered heroes.
Right, it's a party.
But if you want a game to evolve from a fun, noisy internet cafe distraction into a legitimate sport, something that can be played for real stakes and true competition, it requires a profound level of rigorous fairness.
Okay. The party has to end.
Exactly. It needs rules that are mathematically unbreakable and a playing field that is perfectly, obsessively level.
Which brings us to perhaps the most legendary, almost mythical figure in the entire history of esports.
Oh, yes.
Because Ginsu, after unifying the community, eventually decides to step away from Dota All-Stars to pursue other things.
Just like Yule did before him.
Right. And he hands the proverbial baton, the keys to this massive kingdom, over to a mysterious developer known only by the online handle IceFrog.
IceFrog.
IceFrog is an incredibly fascinating figure because, to this very day, their true identity remains one of gaming's most closely guarded secrets.
It is wild that in the internet age, nobody knows.
Nobody in the public sphere knows their real name. But what matters to our story isn't who IceFrog is.
Right. It's what IceFrog did.
Exactly. So what do they do?
When IceFrog took over the development of Dota All-Stars, the fundamental focus of the game shifted dramatically.
Away from the mixtape vibe.
Completely. It was no longer about just adding flashy new heroes or throwing crazy new magical items into the mix just to keep people entertained.
Okay, so what was the focus?
IceFrog undertook a monumental, agonizing task of mathematical precision. The era of the mixtape is over. The era of asymmetrical balance had begun.
Okay, I really want to dig into that term. Asymmetrical balance.
It's crucial.
Because balancing a game with dozens of vastly different heroes, hundreds of varying items, and infinite player combinations, that sounds basically like trying to balance a house of cards on a table during an earthquake.
It is exactly like that.
Like if you make one hero even slightly too strong, everyone will pick that hero, and it ruins the entire experience for everyone else, right?
Precisely. It's an incredibly delicate, incredibly volatile ecosystem.
So how do you balance it?
Well, IceFrog realized that true balance didn't mean making every hero exactly the same. That's symmetrical balance, which is, frankly, boring.
Right. If everyone just does exactly 10 damage, there's no strategy.
Exactly. Asymmetrical balance means every hero has a wild, overwhelming strength, but also a crippling, exploitable weakness.
Okay, so rock, paper, scissors on a massive scale.
Yes. IceFrog began meticulously tweaking and adjusting the game to enforce this philosophy. And we're talking about making changes so granular they almost sound absurd to an outsider.
Give me an example, like how granular?
Things like reducing a hero's movement speed by a fraction of a second, or decreasing the damage of a specific fire spell by exactly 2%.
2%, does that even matter?
Oh, it matters immensely at high-level play. Or changing the armor value of a single item by just 1 point.
Wow.
It was obsessive, continuous, iterative balancing based on analyzing endless amounts of player data and community feedback.
And this is where the terms buff and nerf come into play, right? I want to make sure we cover those for the listeners.
Yes, exactly. So a buff is when a developer modifies a character to make them stronger.
Okay, buff means stronger.
Right. Maybe increasing their health pool because they were dying too quickly and nobody was playing them.
Got it. And a nerf?
A nerf is the opposite. It's when a developer weakens a character or an item because it was too dominant and upsetting the fairness of the game.
So IceFrog was the master of the subtle buff and the precise nerf.
It's unmatched in the industry.
It sounds like the difference between a chaotic playground brawl where everyone is just swinging wildly and a highly structured chess match where every piece has a specific immutable value.
That's a perfect comparison if we connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
IceFrog's absolute, unwavering obsession with mathematical balance is the single catalyst that transformed Dota from a chaotic, fun mod into a rigid discipline requiring high-level strategic planning.
It wasn't just a toy anymore.
No. By meticulously ensuring that no single hero was an automatic guaranteed win and that every single strategy had a valid execution-based counter-strategy, IceFrog elevated the game.
It became a test of skill.
Exactly. It was no longer just about who clicked faster. It became a test of pure skill, hyper-communication, teamwork, and mental agility.
And that rigorous, mathematically balanced fairness is the very definition of what makes an esport viable.
You cannot have a sport without fair rules.
It is genuinely wild to think about. You have this completely anonymous person working entirely for free on a modification for a game owned by a massive corporation.
Driven by nothing but pure passion for the community.
Right. And they are single-handedly establishing the foundational physics of a future billion-dollar industry. It's almost romantic.
It's entirely unprecedented in modern media. I can't think of anything else quite like it.
Me neither.
But the reality of capitalism is that you can only stay underground for so long.
Right. The suits are going to notice eventually.
Oh, they noticed. The massive, undeniable success of Dota All-Stars under IceFrog's stewardship eventually became a roar that was simply too loud for the giant gaming corporations to ignore.
They saw the numbers.
They looked at the internet traffic. They looked at the localized tournaments. Millions of people were logging in daily to play this mod.
Entire economies of internet cafes were sustained by it.
Yes. The corporate titans looked at this and realized that a massive gold mine was sitting right in front of them, completely unmonetized by the people who created the original Warcraft the Third engine.
Blizzard was just letting it happen.
Pretty much. Which brings us to the pivotal year of 2009.
2009. Okay, what happens in 2009?
The paradigm is about to violently shift from the grassroots, open source underground to the heavily funded corporate mainstream.
Here we go.
In 2009, a relatively new development company called Riot Games decides to launch a brand new standalone game. They call it League of Legends.
League of Legends, the behemoth.
The behemoth. And let's be clear about what League of Legends was at the time. It was clearly, undeniably built upon the exact gameplay blueprint that Aeon 64, Yule, Ginsu, and IceFrog had spent a decade refining.
It was the same game, fundamentally.
It featured the exact same 3-lane map layout, the exact same concept of creeping, ganking, leveling up heroes, buying items, and destroying the enemy base.
But crucially, it wasn't a mod living inside someone else's game anymore.
Exactly. It was a fully funded, standalone product with its own proprietary graphics engine, its own dedicated global servers, and a massive marketing budget.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me, specifically from a pure marketing psychology standpoint.
Oh, their strategy was brilliant.
Right, because Riot Games knew they had a massive hurdle to overcome. They knew the hardcore, deeply entrenched gaming community would look at League of Legends and instantly write it off.
They'd say, oh, this is just a corporatized DotA clone.
Exactly. Or they would view it as just another version of a mod, which inherently carried a stigma of being amateurish or unstable.
Because mods crash. Mods break.
Exactly. So Riot did something incredibly shrewd. They didn't just market a new video game, they marketed a brand new vocabulary.
They literally invented a new term to legitimize their product and the genre as a whole.
Tell them the acronym.
They coined the acronym MOBA, which stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena.
Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. MOBA. When you say it out loud, it sounds official.
It sounds weighty, right?
It really does. It sounds like a recognized sport like MMA or the NFL. It has that gravity to it.
That was exactly the intent. By giving it an acronym that sounded professional, distinct, and broad, they successfully shed the historical stigma of the genre's modding roots.
They just washed their hands of the word mod.
Exactly. It was a brilliant psychological trick to tell the global market, this isn't a quirky modification of an old 2002 strategy game anymore. This is a brand new, standalone genre of mainstream entertainment.
And we are the pioneers bringing it to you.
Precise.
And it worked brilliantly. League of Legends exploded in popularity.
Beyond anyone's wildest expectations.
But Riot wasn't the only company that saw the gold mine.
Not at all. What followed was an era of fierce, intense corporate market competition.
Right. We saw the rise of several competitors, but most notably, a game called Heroes of Newerth, commonly known as Hunter.
Yes, Hunter Unne is a very important piece of this historical puzzle, particularly when we look at the global, regional reach of the genre.
What made Hunne different from League of Legends?
The source material specifically points out that Hunne captivated gamers with a much faster gameplay pace and incredibly aggressive, darker graphics.
It was gritty.
Very gritty, and it found a massive, fiercely dedicated audience in Southeast Asia, particularly in Thailand.
Back to the cafes.
Exactly. It dominated the internet cafes there for years. It offered a more visceral, unforgiving experience compared to the slightly more colorful, cartoonish look of League of Legends at the time.
Ah, I see. So it created these intense regional loyalties.
Very intense. You're either a League player or a Hunter player.
So you have League of Legends trying to capture the vast global mainstream. You have Hunne carving out massive, unshakable strongholds in specific regions.
The corporate wars have officially begun.
They have. But the ultimate corporate power move was yet to come.
Oh, the biggest player hadn't even entered the chat yet.
Right. Because the absolute giant of PC gaming, a company called Valve, you know, the legendary creators of Half-Life and the owners of the Steam PC distribution platform, they decide it's time to step into the arena.
And when Valve steps in, they don't do it quietly.
No, they don't just make a shiny clone. They execute an absolute checkmate.
Valve's strategy was brilliant in its directness.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's respect for the community.
What did they do?
They realized that you can't fake authenticity. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel or invent a new acronym.
They went straight to the source.
They officially recruited the mysterious IceFrog.
Wow. They literally found the guy.
They found him. They hired the architect of balance himself and gave him the full backing, the the limitless financial resources and the cutting-edge technology of a massive studio.
Just to make his game
They
properly.
create the official, standalone sequel, Dota 2.
That is just incredible. They literally bought the authenticity. You can't possibly call Dota 2 a cheap corporate clone when it is quite literally being built by the exact person who spent the last 5 years defining the rules of the original game.
Precisely. It was a masterstroke.
Checkmate.
But Valve didn't just bring the original architect in-house. They legitimized the sport globally in a way no one had ever dared to before.
How so?
When Valve finally unveiled Dota 2 to the world in 2011, they didn't just release a boring press statement.
Right.
They did it by hosting a massive live tournament called the International.
International, okay.
And they announced that the prize pool for that very first tournament was a staggering $1 million to the winning team.
$1 million. I really want people to grasp that context.
It's hard to understate how crazy that was.
Right, because in the early 2010s, that number was completely astronomical for a video game tournament. It shattered every single record that existed.
People literally thought it was a typo when the announcement went out.
There's an extra zero here, guys.
Exactly. They thought it was a joke.
But it wasn't.
No, it was a massive statement of intent. And it fundamentally changed the psychology of the player base overnight.
I can imagine. Suddenly, mastering the complex intricacies of this game wasn't just a way to get bragging rights at your local internet cafe in Bangkok or Chicago.
Right. It was a mathematically viable, legitimate career path.
That's a huge shift.
It elevated the players from passionate hobbyists to professional, salaried athletes. Valve essentially used a mountain of money to force the mainstream world to take the MOBA genre seriously.
And it worked.
It worked perfectly. And year after year, that prize pool grew exponentially, eventually hitting tens of millions of dollars.
Funded by the fans, right?
Yes, innovatively funded by the community themselves, buying in-game cosmetic items.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's take a breath and look at the trajectory here, because this is a lot to take in.
The long journey.
We've gone from a tiny, clunky map in StarCraft to a complex RPG mod in Warcraft 3, to a curated mixtape violently fought over in deafening internet cafes, to a massive corporate war over naming rights.
And finally, to a multi-million-dollar global sport funded by the players.
You would think the evolution stops there. The stadium is fully built. We're done.
You'd think so.
But as the PC market settled into a stabilized battleground of absolute titans, essentially a duopoly between League of Legends and Dota 2, the genre was quietly preparing for its next massive evolution.
Oh, a huge one.
An evolution that would break down the final, tallest barrier to entry.
And that barrier is hardware.
Hardware, explain that.
Well, for all of the massive global success of League of Legends and Dota 2, they still fundamentally required one thing: a relatively powerful personal computer.
Right. You needed the tower, the monitor.
A keyboard, a mouse. And while PC ownership is common in many parts of the world, it is absolutely not universal.
It's a significant financial barrier. PCs are expensive.
Exactly. The genre, despite its global reach, was still inherently locked to a desk.
But parallel to this, the mobile revolution was happening.
Oh, yes. Smartphones were becoming ubiquitous globally.
Right. They were rapidly evolving from simple communication devices into incredibly powerful computers in their own right.
Everyone had one in their pocket.
And forward-thinking developers looked at the massive, deeply complex, hour-long battlefield of the PC MOBA and asked a seemingly impossible, almost laughable question.
Can we shrink this?
Exactly. Can we somehow put this entire 50-button experience onto a piece of smooth glass that fits in your pocket?
Which sounds insane when you think about it.
It really does. But the answer, against all odds, was yes.
It was yes. It required massive design concessions, obviously, but they shattered the platform barriers.
How did they manage it?
Well, we saw the rise of modern mobile titans driving this entirely new era of the genre. Games like Arena of Valor, or Rove as it's known in many massive regions.
Rove is huge.
Huge. Mobile Legends, which became an absolute phenomenon. And eventually, Riot Games themselves realized they had to adapt.
They couldn't ignore mobile.
No. So they shrank their massive flagship title into the mobile game League of Legends. Wild Rift.
It's a staggering design achievement, truly.
It is.
Because they took a game that inherently requires incredibly precise mouse clicking, rapid keyboard usage, and deep, hour-long strategic planning. And they adapted it entirely for two thumbs.
Just swiping and tapping.
Yeah. They automated some of the tedious mechanics. Crucially, they shortened the match times down to, like, 15 or 20 minutes.
Right, so you could play it on a bus commute instead of having to commit a full, uninterrupted hour isolated at a desk.
Yeah.
This raises an important question, though, about how accessibility fundamentally changes a culture.
How do you mean?
Because it's not just a technological shift, it's a sociological one. When you successfully move a game of this caliber to mobile, you democratize it.
You level the playing field.
Exactly. You completely remove the need for an expensive PC setup, a dedicated desk, or even a wired internet connection.
Anyone, anywhere, at any time, as long as they have a relatively cheap smartphone and a basic cellular signal, can immediately enter the battlefield. It's almost like it takes the spirit of the old 2005 internet cafe. You know, that deeply social, ubiquitous access where you play next to your friends, and it just puts it directly into the pockets of the masses.
That's a great way to look at it.
You don't have to walk down the street to the cafe anymore. The cafe is with you on the subway train, it's in the high school cafeteria, it's in the break room at work.
It massively expanded the demographic of who gets to consider themselves an esports player.
Going from person with enough disposable income for a gaming PC to literally anyone with a phone.
It is the ultimate expansion of the genre. We've watched it go from a single clunky map on a PC monitor to a truly global, omnipresent mobile phenomena.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring it all together for you, the listener.
Good idea.
We started this deep dive by asking you to picture a stadium with millions of dollars on the line.
Right, the grand spectacle.
And now we know the actual journey to get to that stage. From a tiny, modified map called Aeon of Strife, born of pure, unmonetized passion in 1998.
To Eul's brilliant infusion of RPG mechanics that made the game addictive.
To Ginsu's curated, chaotic mixtape that sparked a fire in those noisy internet cafes.
To Ice Frog's agonizingly rigorous mathematical balance that legitimized it as a true sport.
Right. To Riot Games inventing the word MOBA to make it mainstream, and Valve validating it with $1 million check.
All the way to modern titans like Rovi and Mobile Legends, putting that exact same fundamental foundational gameplay loop into the pockets of hundreds of millions of people around the globe.
It is a genre that single-handedly redefined what global sports can look like in the 21st century.
Truly.
And it is the ultimate, undeniable proof that the power of community, the power of unfiltered player imagination, can permanently and radically alter the video game landscape.
It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the best, most lucrative ideas in entertainment don't always come from the top down.
Right, not from the suits.
They don't always come from corporate boardrooms. Sometimes they bubble up from the very people who are playing the games, just looking for a new way to have fun with their friends.
Exactly. And that incredible realization leaves me with a final lingering thought for you to chew on as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
If $1 billion global sports empire, complete with stadiums, sponsorships, and professional athletes, was born simply because one regular player named Eon64 had access to a basic map editor in 1998.
Yeah.
What entirely new, mind-bending genre of entertainment is currently being quietly prototyped right now by some teenager on their smartphone, just waiting to change the world all over again.